I was the kind of daughter people forget in family photos, the one standing off to the side, holding someone else's coat. Always polite, always helpful, never the one they bragged about. My name didn't sparkle the way my cousins did. Melanie, the one who married a surgeon. Julia, who ran some glamorous company I could never pronounce. And Grace, perfect Grace, who could have set the house on fire and still been praised for her spark. Every holiday felt like a performance I wasn't cast in. My mother would lean in when they spoke, her eyes gleaming like she was watching royalty. I'd try to join in, offer something, a story, a moment from my week, and I'd get a soft smile, a quick, "That's nice, dear," before they went back to louder voices and shinier lives. I learned to stay quiet. Being invisible was easier than being compared, but love doesn't let go, even when it's ignored. So I stayed. I showed up. Every birthday, I helped bake the cakes. I remembered their doctors' names. When my parents got older and things got harder, I was the one they called. Not Melanie, not Julia, not Grace. They only came around when there was an audience or a holiday meal. But me? I was there in the quiet, the messy, the unflattering. Sometimes I let myself believe they noticed, that behind the dismissive smiles they saw how much I gave, how loyal I was. Maybe, just maybe, that would matter more than all the showy stuff. My mother once said, "Blood runs deep," as if it was a promise. But she never warned me how deep it could cut. They called us the Golden Family. At least, that's what the neighbors used to say. We looked polished from the outside, big smiles, well-dressed for church, cousins arm in arm like some magazine spread. But I always felt like a guest in the picture, the kind they crop out. I don't think it was intentional, not exactly. My parents weren't cruel, just blind in that comfortable, casual way some people are when they've already decided who matters. Growing up, I thought maybe if I worked a little harder, they'd see me. So I kept my grades up. I never talked back. I filled silence with kindness, and when the cousins swept in for Thanksgiving, I'd watch them command the room like it was built for them. They had stories, confidence, presence. I had soft hands and a quiet voice. No one asked about my dreams. They assumed I didn't have any. Still, I never stopped trying. I helped clean up after everyone left. I called my parents just to ask how they were. I sent birthday cards no one replied to. Part of me believed, needed to believe, that if I kept showing up, someday it would be my turn. Not for applause, just for acknowledgement. For someone to say, she was the one who stayed. She mattered most. But that day never came. And somewhere along the way, I stopped waiting. I don't know when it happened. Maybe after the third Christmas I spent mostly in the kitchen, or the time Julia forgot my name at a wedding. I started realizing that love, in my family, wasn't something you earned. It was something you either wore like perfume or didn't have at all. Even now, I remember the way my mother would tilt her head when someone praised my cousins. That soft little smile, like she was proud of having raised a family worth envying, even if I was just the footnote. I don't think she meant to wound me, but it doesn't take a knife to leave a scar. Sometimes it's the repetition, the omission, the quiet comparison that sinks in deepest. And my father? He followed her lead. He wasn't a cruel man, just distracted. Present, but not really there. He laughed at their stories, poured them wine, and rarely looked my way unless something needed fixing or fetching. I don't think he ever asked me what made me happy. Maybe he thought I didn't need much. Or maybe he just liked it better when things were simple. And I was simple, reliable, unremarkable, safe. There's a strange kind of ache that comes from loyalty, the kind that never gets returned. I didn't rebel. I didn't scream. I stayed. I fed them soup when they were sick. I cleaned out drawers full of old photos and clipped coupons and made sure their bills got paid on time. And for what? For the hope that one day, all that love I gave so quietly might finally speak loud enough to be heard. Blood runs deep, my mother once said, like it was a blessing. I wonder if she knew that sometimes it cuts deeper than any stranger ever could. They died less than a year apart. My mother first, quick, unexpected, one of those calls that shatters your morning coffee into a memory. My father followed months later, slower, quieter, like his heart couldn't find a reason to keep going without her. And just like that, the house went silent. Not the kind of silence you get when everyone's asleep. The kind that wraps around you, heavy, unmoving. Like grief is a second skin. I did everything. I organized the funerals, I picked the hymns, arranged the flowers, found the only decent caterer in town who didn't charge a fortune. I answered calls no one wanted to make, smiled politely through tears I didn't have time to cry. And when the cousins arrived, late, of course, and overdressed, they offered hollow hugs and performed their sorrow like it was just another social event. I watched them from the corner like I always had. After the dust settled, I went back to the house. Their house. My childhood home. I sorted through old clothes, opened drawers filled with expired medicine, found faded notes in the margins of cookbooks. Everything still smelled like them. That faint mix of lavender and aftershave, stubborn and familiar. I thought maybe, just maybe, this would be the moment. The one where everything would finally make sense. The one where my devotion would finally matter. And then the will was read. I remember sitting there, heart thudding in my ears, trying to look composed while the lawyer unfolded the papers like it was just another Tuesday. He cleared his throat, adjusted his glasses, and started reading. I waited for my name, not with greed, but with quiet hope. A single sentence, a gesture. Something that said, "We saw you," that all the years I gave hadn't vanished into nothing. But my name never came. Not once. The house, gone. Left to Julia. The savings, the stocks, the insurance, split evenly between Grace and Melanie. Even the jewelry, the little things my mother used to wear on Sunday mornings went to them. There wasn't even a letter for me. Not a mention. Not a keepsake. Just absence. Like I'd been edited out of their lives after death, too. I sat there frozen, nodding like I understood, like I was fine. Meanwhile, the cousins shifted in their seats, whispering among themselves like they'd just won the lottery. Grace finally looked at me, tilted her head in that smug, pitying way, and said, "You can have some of the jewelry if you want. I mean, if it means something to you." As if it were charity, as if I should be grateful. I nodded again, but inside, something cracked. Not from anger, not yet. From grief. A different kind. The kind that comes when you realize the people you loved most chose a performance over a person. And even in death, they wanted the world to believe the illusion more than they wanted to honor the truth. I didn't scream. I didn't cause a scene. I walked out of that office with my back straight, holding in the kind of pain that doesn't have a name. It wasn't about the money. Not really. It was about what it meant. That even after all the meals I cooked, all the nights I stayed by their side, all the birthdays I never missed, I still didn't count. They made it official. In black ink and notarized silence, they erased me. That night, I broke down in the kitchen. Not the one I grew up in. That was already being renovated by Julia's decorators. No, I cried on the cold tile floor of my tiny apartment, the one with chipped cabinets and humming pipes. I don't know how long I stayed there, knees pulled to my chest, trying to remember the sound of my mother's voice before it turned sharp. Before love got replaced by judgment. I kept thinking, what did I do wrong? What was the rule I didn't follow? Was I too quiet? Too plain? Was loyalty supposed to come with lipstick and champagne? And then, just like that, the questions stopped. The tears dried, and something colder settled in. Not bitterness, but clarity. A new voice, one that had lived in me all along, finally spoke up. If I didn't matter to the dead, then fine. But I'd make damn sure the living remembered me. It didn't happen overnight. There was no dramatic montage, no thunderclap of revenge, just stillness at first. Long mornings where I sat with coffee gone cold, letting silence wrap around me like armor. But something had changed. I wasn't broken. I was awake. And in that quiet, I started seeing things I'd never noticed. Gaps, cracks, the little lies my cousins told without thinking, the careless way they moved through life as if nothing could touch them. I started with property records. At first, just curiosity. I wanted to see what they were doing with the house, But that turned into something else. I found names I didn't recognize, holding titles to land that should have been in the family. Trusts set up hastily. Loans taken out. Renovations started and abandoned. The more I looked, the more tangled it got. And the more I realized, they had no idea what they were doing. So I kept digging. I opened spreadsheets I hadn't touched in years, taught myself how to read financial disclosures. I learned about taxes, trusts, inheritance law. I made charts, took notes. I didn't tell anyone, not even the few friends I had left. This wasn't rage. It wasn't even about getting even. It was about finally seeing clearly. About no longer being the woman in the corner of the photo, forgotten and small. I wasn't going to take back what they stole. I was going to show the world who they really were. I started watching them the way a hunter watches its prey, quietly, patiently, without blinking. Not out of malice, but precision. I knew how they moved, how they spoke, the lies they told with charm so polished it could blind you. Melanie was the worst, spending recklessly, hosting charity events with money she barely understood, smiling through shallow interviews like she was royalty. Julia fumbled through business ventures she didn't have the patience for. And Grace? Grace was too busy posing for curated lives on social media to notice the rot setting in. While they flaunted their inheritance, I was building something real. I took every ounce of discipline I once used to please my parents and turned it inward. I got a certification, then another. I started consulting part-time, then full-time. My name, my real name, slowly began appearing on contracts, invoices, even articles. I didn't want their gold. I was building my own currency, credibility, independence, and truth. But I knew power isn't just made from money or knowledge. It's made from people. So I began connecting. Quietly, intentionally. A disgruntled assistant here, an ex-boyfriend there. I listened more than I spoke. People love to talk when they think you're not a threat. And I wasn't. Not yet. I was just the quiet cousin. The one nobody noticed. The one who didn't matter. Funny how invisibility becomes your greatest weapon when no one sees you coming. I kept everything. Every slip of information. Every careless confession passed over wine or coffee. I built folders, timelines, patterns, not because I was obsessed, but because I was ready. Ready to stop surviving in the margins. Ready to confront the idea that love without respect is just another kind of prison. And slowly the story I'd been told all my life, that I was lucky just to be included, began to unravel. I saw it clearly now. They hadn't inherited the family legacy. They'd looted it. And while they polished their image and bought followers and hosted galas, they didn't see what I was building. Something rooted, something unshakable. I wasn't after revenge, not in the dramatic sense. What I wanted was justice. What I wanted was for the truth to be louder than their curated lies. The funny thing is, once I stopped needing their love, I saw just how hollow they were. All surface, all sparkle, no soul. And I stopped flinching at their names, stopped apologizing for the space I took up. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I was the one listening while they shouted, the one taking notes while they danced, the one who never left and never forgot. They inherited the gold. I inherited the truth. It started small, a flagged transaction, a quiet call to a compliance officer. No name attached, just questions. Curious, polite, but pointed. Then came the anonymous tip to the foundation where Melanie served as treasurer. A donation that didn't match the tax filings. Then another. These weren't fireworks. They were fuses. And I knew exactly where they led. I wasn't out for headlines. I was out for erosion, the kind that looks like coincidence until it's too late. Next came the stories, one by one, whispered into the right ears. A former intern shared how Grace doctored her resume. An ex of Julia's opened up about the offshore account she used to hide assets. I didn't have to push. I just listened. I nudged. People wanted to talk. They just needed someone who understood the silence beneath the sparkle, and no one understood that silence better than me. By the time the financial audit landed, they were still too busy smiling for cameras, still performing. still pretending their lives were built on legacy instead of leverage. I watched it all unfold from a distance, not gloating, not bitter, just still, focused. And if anyone asked, I knew exactly what to say. Oh, I haven't seen them in ages. We drifted apart after the funeral. And all the while, the house, my house, sat abandoned, hollow, stripped of its soul, just like they had been all along. I had plans for it, but first I needed to finish what I started. It didn't take long. One news article turned into 3. Then came the whispers at board meetings, the canceled partnerships, the lawyers trying to do damage control without admitting there was damage. Melanie stepped down. For personal reasons. Julia went radio silent. Grace tried to pivot with a public apology video, soft lighting, trembling voice, the works. But the comments weren't kind. People remember fraud, they forget sparkle. I watched it all from my small kitchen, phone glowing in the dark, the headlines stacked like trophies I never asked for. Former heiresses under investigation for financial misconduct. Anonymous sources detail a pattern of deception. They still didn't know it was me. They couldn't imagine I'd had the patience, the spine, the intellect. I was the quiet one, remember? The helper. The shadow. They underestimated me right into their own downfall. And still, I didn't speak. I didn't post. I didn't brag. Let the world make their assumptions. Let my cousins burn in the fires they lit with their own arrogance. I had no interest in dancing on their graves. What I wanted was the truth. Exposed. Undeniable. Standing in the daylight without makeup or excuses. And now that it was happening, I felt calm. No justice is louder than the kind you don't have to announce. The house was mine again. They didn't even know it. I'd bought it through a shell company after they tried, and failed, to flip it for a profit. Now it sat, weathered and empty, waiting for something more honest to grow inside it. I walked through the house before the papers were even finalized, keys in hand, no one watching. The walls still remembered them, their voices, their perfume, the forced laughter that echoed off expensive furniture. But now, it was stripped bare. Just dust and echoes and the faint smell of mold creeping through cracked windows. Funny, how something that once held so much pride could decay so quickly without anyone who truly cared for it. Room by room, I took it in. The old kitchen tile my mother insisted on. The dent in the hallway from when I fell off my bike and didn't cry. The back bedroom where my father used to keep his suits in plastic. It should have hurt. It should have felt like grief again. But it didn't. It felt like closure. Like I was the only one left who knew how to turn memory into something meaningful. And then came the article that sealed it all. Former heiresses facing charges of tax fraud. Family member speaks anonymously. Karma doesn't forget bloodlines. I didn't write it, but I didn't stop it either. Someone else put the pieces together. Truth has a way of finding its voice when the lies finally get tired. I clipped the headline and tucked it into a drawer. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. They spent their lives building a legacy of appearance. I was building something else. And now, it was time to decide what to do with the ruins they left behind. I didn't turn the house into a home. That would have been too simple, too soft. What I did was turn it into something useful, something honest. The first hammer strike echoed like a heartbeat. I gutted the parlor, ripped up the carpet, painted over the past. Every wall I rebuilt felt like reclaiming a part of myself I'd been taught to ignore. This time, I wasn't building for them. I was building for every woman who'd ever been left out of a story she helped carry. The name came to me late one night. The Inheritance Project, a center for women like me, daughters, nieces, caretakers, forgotten kin, the ones written out of wills and whispered out of family trees. We'd offer legal support, estate planning advice, emotional guidance. We'd help women fight for what's rightfully theirs and heal from what never was. It wasn't just about money. It was about dignity, about truth. At first, it was small. A few volunteers, a trickle of stories. A lawyer I'd once helped with a side project offered her time pro bono. A social worker from my old community center reached out, Word spread, slow but steady. One woman brought her sister, another brought her aunt. The kitchen where I once cried alone now smelled of strong coffee and fresh printouts. Women sitting at long tables, comparing notes, finding strength in each other's voices. This wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, because I made something worth seeing. The cousins reached out eventually. Of course they did. Grace sent a long, meandering email, full of regret and half-reasons. Julia left a voicemail I didn't bother finishing. Melanie sent flowers, always performative, even at the end. They didn't want forgiveness. They wanted relevance, a way back in. But I'd spent too many years being the one who reached first. This time I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, because I'd outgrown the need to explain my absence. One afternoon, while unpacking an old box in what used to be the den, I found it, a small vault tucked behind the bookcase. Inside, childhood drawings. Letters I'd written my parents over the years, notes they never answered. My handwriting was smaller than I remembered. So hopeful, so desperate to be heard. I sat with them for a long time, reading every word like they belonged to someone else. Maybe they did. Then I burned them. Not out of spite, but as an offering. A release. The fire ate the paper slowly, curling the edges like petals. The room filled with that scent of smoke and old ink. It didn't feel like erasing. It felt like closing a chapter I had waited my whole life to finish. And in that flickering light, I made peace with the truth. Their love had conditions. Mine doesn't anymore. That night, I stood alone in the front hall, the one they used to decorate with wreaths and expectations, and I saw something new in the stillness, not emptiness, possibility. The last room I finished was the smallest one, the sunroom at the back of the house, the place my mother used to sit and knit in the afternoons. I repainted the walls a soft white, clean, unburdened. We installed bookshelves, soft chairs, and a long table where women now gathered to write their own stories. On the wall above the doorway, we hung a plaque. Simple, carved by hand. It reads, "Legacy isn't what you're given, it's what you build when they give you nothing." Sometimes I sit there alone after everyone's gone, just listening to the quiet. Not the silence of grief. This one is different. It's the sound of rest after resistance, of knowing I became the kind of woman my younger self needed. I didn't need a will to tell me who I was. I found that on my own, in the ruins, in the fire, in the rebuilding. And now, I give that chance to others, every time someone walks through that door, scared but ready. I don't think of my parents often anymore. Not with pain, anyway. Just distance. They gave me life, yes, but I gave it shape, meaning, power. My name may not be in their will, but I've written it into something far more enduring, something they couldn't take away, no matter how hard they tried to look past me. And in the end, I inherited it all, not the money, but the power they never wanted me to have.